All right, we'll be looking at context API. It is a state manager store provided for us by React. And so we want to see how you can easily incorporate it into your project. There are other managers like that, store managers like Redux that a lot of people have been using, but I feel Context is a lot more easy to understand. It is not as complex as Redux is, and of course, it's made by React for React developers. So, if you're asking why you should use React Context, the reason it's simple. You just see it like a store where everybody can easily access. Now, already there are props that are used by React components to pass properties from one component to the other. But you notice that sometimes you can't pass a component from a child component to a parent component. So you need a store where you can use whatsoever you're using in the child component in the parent component. Also, that is an easy solution if you already know what you are looking for already. But imagine a complex project whereby you've really built something really big, and at some point you want to use certain variable that you use in the child component in the parent component. Now, this will require a lot of refactoring. Now, how about um, if you can save yourself from the stress of refactoring by keeping it in a store where everybody can easily access? And this is where React context come into play. So what I want to do in this video is to put you through on how to get started with React context and show you how to use it in a big project or a complex project. So let's get into it. So the first thing we want to do is we need to define the context, or just name a context. And we create context to create a context API. So for this, we'll just do const, and you can name it anything. So we can just do app context equal to create context. Now, normally you would need to um, import create context from React, but my editor here will do it for me automatically. So you import React context from React, and then after creating the React context, that's the basic thing you really need to do. So the next thing is to set up a provider, this will be a wrapper that wraps your whole project. Now, if you do not wrap your whole project with the React context that you've created, then whatsoever you have in that React context file or variable would not be passed down to those components that are not wrapped by it. So usually the app file, the app.jsx file is usually the base file, and it's a good place to wrap our whole project. So here we'll now want to wrap this with app context dot provider, and then you also close it down here. So close it down here, and automatically we now have the app context covering everything or all our project, because every of our components will be based off on what we have here. So now what we want to do is to show you how to pass down values down to the files or whatever component that will be down here. So we use a variable here called value, or a props though, called value. Now whatsoever is inside of this value will be accessible by any component that is inside of here. So let's define a variable. Maybe we'll say man equal to woman, something like this, and then let's pass the man here. So usually this is an object, so you can say man equal to man, but you will use the shorthand where we just put man. Already our project knows that this is man equal to man, and we save this. Then let's do a p tag here and then show whatever is inside of the man inside here. So we do man and save it up. Now as soon as you save it, it should show here. So you refresh and we'll have it here showing. Yeah, so let me zoom in so that you can see, just in case you're not seeing. So you recall that here we set man equal to woman, and we are showing our result of man equal to woman here. Of course, we are seeing woman here. And that's the basics of how you can use React context in your project. Now, if you want to pass this as a props down into any component, you can easily do that. It's so simple. Say, for example, you have another file. So let's create a folder components here. And you have, let's just call it test.tsx. And then we'll just set up the project like this. Let's make sure that this is capital letter, by the way. All right, now if you want to pass down that props here, it's simple. You just, let's save this, by the way. You could just come down here and you import this text component here, and then you can pass in this props man here. So you can pass in man equal to man here, right? Then you save this. I'll come down here and then import whatsoever you pass down as props down here. I'll make sure that this is inside of curly braces, and inside of here let's put in man here, and then save it, and you see woman is appearing. Now this is really cool. We have clearly seen the basics of how to use the app context or context provider generally to pass down variables. Now this variable is available in any of the components that are inside of this app context. We've just done it as a demo here and it's working, right? But how do we use it in a big project, like a complex project, where of course you have separate files, one file from another, one folder from another, and you need to call this in multiple files and maybe simultaneously. So that's what we want to do now. So let's break it down and assume we are building a big project here. So let's first create a folder where we'll have all our context files. So we can call this store. And inside of here, let's create a file, app context.jsx, app context.jsx, cool. And then let's get rid of that. So as usual, the first thing we want to do is to create this. So we can just copy this and paste it down here, and you just import this. So I do automatically import it here, and make sure you export it this time around because we'll be using it in other files. Then what's next? The next thing here is to let's create this time around. We want to create this provider and export it, right? So const, let's do app context provider, and then make it equal to, all right, an arrow function file. Good. Now this takes in a prop children, so you can wrap this with you can wrap it with the curly braces, but let's keep going. Now inside of here, let's return. So this is just like a regular component, but this time around we are using the power of context API to make it a store where every other file can access. All right, so return app context dot provider. All right, now this should be wrapped inside of the angular brackets like this, and then you should close it off like this. And inside of it here, the children should be. So what we're basically telling this is any component that is passed through it as a child should be inside of this app provider, and then it should be able to access whatsoever variable that is inside of this app context provider, right? So let's make this props. Let's just use props here, or we can actually do it this way and get rid of this error by disabling the React prop types in the entire file, and with this we are good. So what's next? What next is to add in the value. Now the value here is whatsoever variable we want to pass down to every other component that are passed through the app provider here. So what we want to do here now is to set a variable here. So let's say man equal to woman, and then let's do const my name equal to, so of course you know my name, Njoko Samson Ebere. Now that we have this set up, we can now pass down man here and then pass my name down here. Now if we pass any component through this, everything, all these variable will be available there. So let's save this. Now the first thing we want to do is let's clear off everything we've done here and keep here clean. Now extracting your context into a different file makes it really easy for you to keep your files clean. So that's another reason why it's cool to extract it. So let's get rid of all this. Let's leave this for a minute. We'll be using it in a moment. So let's get rid of this too. And so the first thing we want to do now is to wrap the whole file, the whole project with the app provider. Now doing it here in the app file, the app.jsx file, is cool. But the issue is, if you do it here, you may not be able to access the variables because you are calling both the provider and the app context that you've created in the same file. So let's take it to a top level file that is higher than this, and that is the main.jsx file. So this is where we want to import our app context provider. Yes, so it automatically imports it for me up here, if you notice. So just in case you don't have that set up, you have to type that out. So you paste it here. Now automatically it is wrapping everything in the app.jsx file here. So we'll save that, then we'll come back to this. Now for us to access everything that is inside of this app context file, what we need to do is to use the context. Remember that here we created the context using the create context function. Now we want to use the useContext to use or get all the variable that is passed down for us. And we also use the structure in here. So useContext. So do useContext. So I have to import it first, so I have automatically imported it. So I'll just use this boilerplate to create whatever I want here. So let's import this, and it's going to be app context. It also automatically imports it for me. I'm saying this so that you don't run into an error when doing your own. Always import it first, but if you have the extension to auto import, it's really cool and easy. And now what are those things that we want to import? One is man, and second one is my name. So let's type it out here, man, and the second one, my name. Cool. Now that we have imported this, automatically everything here will still remain the same. So you save it, and everything should still work as normal. But to make sure that this is working, let's change the value of man here, and let's say person. Save it, and you notice that everything changes from man to person, from woman to person. Now we can even pass in more values here. That's what we want to do. So let's pass in my name and paste it down here. Paste, you save, right? Now this is working. But to actually show you the main power why I want us to use React context, let's remove this man here. You save it, and you see this second value here is no more, right? So let's go into the text.ts. This is tsx. Please, let's change this to jsx. I think I'm making a bunch of mistakes here. Please, this is a jsx project. All right, let's get rid of this here. We'll fix that in a moment. So as you can see, person isn't showing here anymore. You will notice that person is no longer down here. So to make it happen and to really show you the power of context API, so let's use context. As usual, we import it, and then let me use the boilerplate to quickly get man here. So we'll have man, and then let's import the app context up here and save it. Immediately save it, you see person showing up here, and of course we can choose to get rid of this man here. Let me get rid of it and then use my name instead. And when you save, it changes here. So notice that we didn't have to pass down these variables down to the text component. We just had to come to the text component and then get access to the store and then use our variable. And this is the beauty of context API, and it's that simple to implement it. So will be it for this tutorial. I hope you've been able to benefit from it. I use context API for my project, all my project. So this is a project I'm working on, and inside of this context folder, this is where I have all my context files. So this is country, this is general, this is language, payment, subscription, team, user, and variable. So for example, this variable is where I store all variable that I know I will need to reuse. So I set up let me get rid of this so that you can easily see. So I set up my use states like this, and of course down here I export them using the value that you saw. This is user. In this user part, this is where I set up my say login, other authentication, and stuff like that. So here is the login, here is the create user, here's the logout, auth with Google and stuff like this. And when you come down to this value part, this is where I export all the function. This is same thing with country. If you look at it, these get countries, and when you look down here, we'll have them being exported. Now when you go down to the main.tsx file, you notice that this is where I import and wrap my app file inside of the context files. So all you just need to do is wrap each context on each other. Just make sure that the context you are wrapping on top of the other would not be needed by the one downwards. So if the one upwards will be needed by the one downwards, then it's not going to be easy. You might have to swap it. So basically see it like this: if a context is going to be a parent to another context, then it should be on top. If a context is going to be a child to another context for any reason, which is very likely not to happen, then it should be downwards. That's just the basic thing. But generally, the way you use context is in such a way that each context would hardly need them except it is really necessary. And that is it. That'll be it for this tutorial. I hope you've been able to enjoy it and you've seen how you can use it in a big project or complex project. Please like, share, and subscribe. I hope to see you in my next tutorial.